Benvenuti a Roma, the eternal city. Rome is one of my favorite cities that I've been to so far in Europe due to its beautiful Baroque architecture, ancient ruins, great food, awesome espresso, and just the vibrancy in all these city streets. I'm Ariel, this is Urbanist, and let's explore Rome. It's my fourth time here. I came here first time way before I started Urbanist back in 2015. And then later on, I came back, first time in Urbanist, it was 2019. I cover a lot of the history actually, pretty in depth. And then I came back in 2021, and that was a special time in Rome because it was actually a lot more quieter because it was at the tail end of the pandemic. And then I'm here now. I've been to other parts of Italy in recent years, but I'm once back in Rome and so excited to see more of it. Let's walk around. Feel free to ask me any questions you would like about travel to Rome or Italy. And right now we are on a bridge heading over to the historic center. But first, before we continue walking, I'm going to show you right over here. That is the dome of St. Peter's Basilica in Vatican City. The dome design, first version by Bramante, but Bramante did not have his version ultimately made. This version that we're seeing here today is by Michelangelo, the same artist who painted the Sistine Chapel. This is a whopping 47 stories high. It's a massive dome. Imagine that in the 1500s, seeing something so tall. 47 stories high is about half the size of the Empire State Building, so it's huge. And you will be learning about it in a short video where I cover the history of how it was built, coming very soon this week. So hello Barba, hello Michele, hello Erica, hello Vicentu, hello Solar Plexus. Ed says, would you visit the stunning Galleria Colonna? You know, actually, I have not heard of the Galleria Colonna. What are you referring to? Are you referring to the colonnades of St. Peter's Basilica? Or is that a separate place? Hello, Nico. How's it going? It's going well. Hello, Hannah. Hello, Stefan. Rome is such a beautiful city. Thank you so much for sharing. My pleasure. Let's go deep into the historic center, which is the place that people will gravitate to first and foremost when coming over to beautiful Rome. Now, if you don't know, Rome is the capital of Italy. It is most likely the most visited city in Italy by far. And nowadays, I can tell how it's extremely touristy. Hello, DS. Nice to see you here. Colonna Museum in Rome. Well, you know, I actually never heard of the Colonna Museum. I kind of don't go to museums much anymore. Which might be shocking to some of you listening. You know, I'm a lover of history, I'm a lover of art, and but don't always like decide to go to a museum unless if it's a rainy day or if it's traveling when it's winter, because I just love the city even more than art. I just love walking around and being outside, out and about, especially when it's sunny and still warm. So yeah, that's why I haven't heard of a Galleria Colonna. But of course, Rome does have some outstanding museums, both big and small, that is well worth the visit if you're here. I would highly recommend going to the Borghese Gallery. You'll see some of the most stunning sculptures of the Baroque era ever. Then I will also recommend going to the Vatican Museum, which is just a delight. Especially go later at night. Marit from Norway, nice to see you here. So I've been working on a few short videos. I research for a lot, like hours. And I do that because even though some of these stories are the ones I've covered before, I want to cram as much as possible. And I love cramming as much history as I can. I love cramming 10, 20, 30 minutes of history if I can in 3 minutes or less. So those videos will start coming out this week. Stay tuned. Philip says, have I seen any Roman emperors? No, not any dead ones. Yes, you know, I've gone to Cassan Angelo, which would be the tomb of Emperor Hadrian. I don't think Emperor Hadrian is in Castle of St. Angelo. You know, to think of it, I think the only big mausoleum in the city is the mausoleum of Emperor Augustus, which I have visited before in 2019 and found it fascinating, but I haven't been back. How different is the pizza compared to what we get in the States? Two main styles of pizza you'll find in Rome. I say main because you can find a lot of things in Rome. One of them is Neapolitan style, and that's like the classic round pizza. Very, very, very thin crust. Very, very thin in the middle, but very puffy in the perimeter. And it's saucy and delicious, and it's freshly made. But you have also Roman style, which I highly recommend if you're in Rome. Go to the bakery specifically. They're called fornos. And those you can buy square slices, thicker bread. They tend to be puffier. It's not going to be fresh out of the oven. It's going to be laying there for a few hours, similar to New York style pizza. But it's so delicious. It tastes different from New York style because the emphasis is on great bread and very fresh toppings, like great mozzarella, anchovies. I know some people might be wincing at the sound of anchovies. Trust me, even if you don't like anchovies, try anchovy pizza here in Rome because it is different from American pizza. Susie says you're not live on Facebook. Not sure what happened. You know, Facebook is weird. It's been the case for years, but I clicked on Facebook to go live, but seems like it didn't happen. Dwayne says, what do you think is the most iconic dish in Rome and why? Rome has 4 classic or iconic pasta dishes. So when you're in Rome, grab one of these. Cacio e pepe, which is pecorino cheese with black pepper, and that's it. And pasta. The second one, pasta carbonara, which is like cacio e pepe, but it has egg. So, and guanciale. So you have egg, guanciale, pecorino, and black pepper, and pasta. Number 3 is amatriciana, which is a red sauce pizza. So you have tomato sauce, you have guanciale, which is the pork cheek, tastes very similar to bacon, and you have pecorino cheese. Then you have the gricia, might be pronouncing that incorrectly, and that one is, if I'm correct, I barely have that one. I rarely see it in menus. It's pecorino cheese, guanciale, and no egg. Yeah, so it's like cacio e pepe, but no egg. I mean, it's like carbonara, but no egg. Solar Plexus says, I like the leader that Italy has now. I haven't been too up to date on Italian politics, but yeah. Would you say if you know Spanish, you'll be okay communicating? Rome seems to have had a huge uptick in recent years of Spanish tourists. And I've just walking around the touristy areas, I've heard a lot of Spanish being spoken by the waiters. It seems like they're starting to learn some Spanish. But in general, if you are in Italy, knowing Spanish, you will be able to easily read the menus because it's fairly easy to discern Italian from Spanish, from knowing Spanish. And if someone speaks slow enough, you might be able to understand them. Otherwise, if you're speaking in Spanish to an Italian, I would recommend speaking slowly and they might be able to understand you. Do you toss a coin in Trevi Fountain yet? No, I haven't been to the Trevi Fountain yet. I haven't done the big touristy things this time around. I've been just focused on making a few solid videos. Benoit says, "It's nice to see you in Roma. I was there back in 2016. Ooh. Do you miss it? What about Roman or Italian history fascinates you the most?" For me, it's the ancient history and the Baroque history, for separate reasons. The ancient history, just because you had this civilization that first went from republic to empire that developed so many things that we still use today in Western society and across the world, actually, just in general. You have the system of laws and republic representation, which is used in the US, used in many other countries around the world. You have architecture from the Pantheon, the basilicas from ancient Rome is used in architecture all around, from train stations to churches, to the list goes on. And then you have Colosseum and other arenas that inspired modern day arenas that you see all around Europe, all around America. Pretty much any type of arena that exists today is based off the Roman version of it. So you have a lot of Roman inventions that are still very alive and well today. And then you have the Baroque era that really innovated a lot of those techniques from ancient Rome and made them very beautiful, very elaborate, very extravagant. So I find that fascinating. Welcome to Campo de Fiori. It's known for its marketplace. It's huge. Lots of people here all the time. You can imagine like this was the vibe in ancient Rome. We wouldn't have glass bottles, they would have pots to store the olive oil. There wouldn't be polyester scarves. You might get lucky and find some leather. I'm not sure what textile they would have used in ancient Rome. Hemp? Probably not. Maybe cotton? I'm not sure. That's a good question. Rome has more fountains than any other city in the world, with 1,500, yes. I have heard that these Colosseums were very impressive sound-wise. Yes. Yes, and this dates back to ancient Greek theaters, which were very good when it came to very impressive when it came to I'm getting distracted. Yeah, so ancient Greek theaters were very impressive in terms of sound and acoustics. They were designed in a way to carry sound up to every member of the audience. And the Romans used that architectural techniques from the ancient Greeks to make their own arenas and colosseums. Susie says no silk scarves. You have to go to specialty shops for that, not here in the middle of a touristy market. Food Plane says, was it linen? Yeah, I think it might have been linen. If anyone could let me know. I actually haven't thought about that too deeply. Right here we have Bruno, the hooded figure looking ominously in the middle of Campo de Fiori. Legend has it that he's looking directly at the Vatican in disdain. Now Bruno was a heretic. and he was burnt at the stake, apparently here in the middle of Campo de Fiori. He said such dangerous ideas to citizens of Rome that the papal authorities decided to wire his mouth shut while he was being burnt at the stake. Apparently the only thing that people can hear from Bruno as he was being burnt was his moans and short, curdling screams. No one can hear the last words of Bruno because, of course, he was burnt. And apparently his figure still haunts this square today. Ciao, Camilla. Oh, this is a good photo right over here. Look at that. Oh, wow. It's a great photo. Susie says you can't scream with their mouth wires shut. Well, Bruno did. He found a way. Field says, please compare New York City pizza with Rome pizza. The main difference is Rome pizza is more bready than New York City pizza. And not even like Sicilian. It's like, it tastes like actual bread, like you're eating from a baguette. That's Rome pizza. And it usually has very seasonal ingredients. Unlike New York City pizza, you basically find the same type of toppings in New York City pizza all year round. Pepperoni, mushroom, spinach, sausage, pizza, etc. But in Rome, you have things of the season. So right now, generally you find zucchini, flowers, and anchovies on pizza. Good afternoon, Natalie. Nice to see you here. Dwayne says, I love anchovies. You will be in luck visiting Rome. So many dishes here have anchovies, and I love it. Fun fact, our understanding of ketchup dates back all the way to ancient Rome. But there was no tomatoes back in those times. The tomato comes from the New World. It was brought over probably around the early 1500s or so. The original version of ketchup was made with fish oil. I'm not sure with anchovies, but some type of fish oil. And it would be used as a topping for a whole host of different meats and dishes. That was the first version of ketchup. Cat Ranger says zucchini and anchovies they get, but flowers? Zucchini flowers. So it's not the actual, not always is it just the slices of zucchini, it's actual the flower of the zucchini, which is very rare to find actually in the US. I barely find any dishes that have zucchini flowers, but it's very common here in Rome. Journey with Nicole says, wow, thank you. This is probably the closest I'll ever be in Rome. It's just like I pictured. Journey with Nicole. Nicole, I'm so glad I can take you virtually to Rome. Now we're about to go to one of the most famous squares in all of Rome. The square that everyone takes a picture of and also has a whole host of stories. Let's go to the Piazza Navona. How did they measure things for carpentry and masonry back in ancient Rome? Says Dwayne. No, I don't know that for sure. Dwayne, that's a great question. I'll be curious myself. They definitely had a system of measurement, but I'm not sure if they used a measuring tool. They might have. They probably did use some type of measuring tool. I wouldn't doubt it. Benoit says, I love these narrow streets. Yes, I love them too. And behold, the Piazza Navona. Now this piazza has a very interesting shape. Mika, nice to see you here. Buongiorno. Or buonasera. It's already the afternoon here. Hey, Dream Machine says, it's been a couple of years. Nice to see you again. Hey, Dream Machine. Back in ancient Roman times, this was a circus. Not the circus that we have in America with clowns and elephants. It's a circus that was meant to have horse races, chariot races, all around. Hence, that's why we have this shape. So you could just imagine a place like, say, in New York City area, Belmont Racetrack, thousands of years, 2,000 of years from now, would just become a square because they just decided to use the same shape. Well, that's basically what happened with Piazza Navona. It was no longer a circus. That circus was disappeared over the centuries, and they just decided to build around it in the same shape. And here we have a few famous sculptures. We have a few Baroque fountains. We have 3 of them.
It's not a very outward.
So I had to make sure that the sculptor was good at making glutes. And he is. Did a good job with those glutes. Very accurate. Right here we have the Church of St. Agnes in Agony. It's dedicated to a little girl who was burnt at the stake for trying to follow Catholicism. And apparently when she was being burnt at the stake, her beautiful hair that she was known for in her local area suddenly started growing immensely. And despite her being in agony and in pain from being burnt at the stake, her beautiful hair just flowed and flowed and flowed. Her skull, apparently, is located right inside. And we're going to take a peek if we can get in. But this beautiful church, and I'm saying beautiful for very good reason, because maybe you don't see it from the outside, but you will see it in the inside, was designed by Francesco Borromini. He's one of the most renowned architects of the Baroque era. The Baroque era dating back to late 1500s to about the 1600s. And he was a bit of a hot-tempered architect. Not too many people enjoyed working with him. But despite his architectural genius, or in spite of his architectural genius, a lot of his buildings are still known as some of those most beautiful structures of all Rome. So let's go inside. And right in front we have the Fountain of the Four Rivers by Bernini, Gian Lorenzo Bernini, another superstar sculptor of the Baroque era. Actually, before we step inside, I'm going to show you some very common legend that's not true, but it's a nice legend, that Bernini made this anthropomorphic depiction of a river. This one is representing the Rio de Plata. We also have the Nile, we have the Danube, and we have one more river on the other side. This river is looking up in horror at Francesco Borromini's structure in fear that it would collapse. Basically saying that Francesco Borromini sucks. On the other side, we have one more river that people say is Gian Lorenzo Bernini commenting on Borromini's work. And it's the Nile. Because the Nile, this guy over here, is in denial of the beauty of this church. He's shielding his eyes because basically he's saying Borromini's work sucks. Okay, this is a legend, not quite true. The reason for that is this fountain predates this church by a few years, and it's very unlikely that Gian Lorenzo Bernini had any clue that his rival Borromini would build a church right in front of him. But the rivalry is very, very real. Borromini and Bernini hated each other's guts for many reasons. One big reason was that Bernini, he was a sculptor, but Bernini was hired to be an architect over Borromini, who was way more talented, way more experienced, to build the huge canopy that is inside St. Peter's Basilica, called the Baldacchino. Now, as Bernini was trying to build this Baldacchino, he realized, I don't know how to do this. I need some help. So he hired Francesco Borromini. Nonetheless, the Baldacchino was renowned as one of the most beautiful pieces of architectural art made at the time. And Bernini started gaining all the fame from it. However, he never gave any credit to Francesco Borromini. Borromini was furious and he resented that for years. Then Gian Lorenzo Bernini was tasked with building two massive towers flanking the dome of St. Peter's in order to frame Michelangelo's dome very beautifully. As Bernini, again, a sculptor with minimal architectural experience, was building one of these towers, cracks started to form. As the cracks started to form, the cardinals were panicking because they were like, oh my God, is this going to collapse on us? So they gathered and had a bunch of meetings of what to do with these towers. And they consulted with who else? Francesco Borromini. Borromini delivered a thrashing assessment saying that Bernini was not only making towers with compromised structural integrity, but they can compromise the entire basilica if completed. In other words, if the towers were fully built, the entire basilica could collapse. The cardinals and the Pope decided to demolish those towers. For that, Bernini wasn't too much of a fan of Borromini. All right, let's go inside to St. Agnes in Agony. Gotta put on my glasses for this. It's a bit rude to walk into a church with sunglasses. But lo and behold, it's very easy to walk to most churches. The only church where you're gonna have a lot of restriction, more so than the others, is the St. Peter's Basilica in Vatican City, where they won't generally allow you in with shorts. If you're a woman, don't wear a skirt, a short skirt, or short shorts. But here is pretty flexible. Oh my god. Sometimes a line forms here for some random reason.
What is this? I know.
Tim asked a great question. Can you spot Americans in the crowd here in Italy? And the answer is yes. I'll explain when I'm back outside. Let's go check out the church first. Behold, pure Baroque overload.